In this edition of the Best Horror Movie You Never Saw video series, we're taking a look back at the 1995 sci-fi horror thriller Screamers. The film Screamers is based on the 1953 Philip K. Dick novelette Second Variety, and retains most of the story beats of the original novel, save a few details, such as calling the titular killer robot Screamers instead of Claws, and a major departure when it comes to the ending. Another major change is the setting. Instead of being set on Earth, as it is in the novel, the film is instead set on the mining planet Sirius 6b. Furthermore, instead of being an allegory for the Cold War between the Soviets and the United States like it is in the book, which was, of course, written not long after World War II, in the same way the film was made less than 5 years after the fall of the Soviet Union, the conflict is now presented as a proxy war between striking mining workers and scientists called the Alliance, which are going up against an evil mining corporation called the New Economic Bloc, or NEB. After the ore they were contracted to mine, called beryllium, turned out to be highly radioactive and dangerous.
Produce beryllium, the great answer to the world's energy question. And those mines started puking up radiation, cubic tons of it. We thought we discovered gold. Discovered shit.
Anyway, the workers' strike led directly to the aforementioned proxy war that lasted 5 years, eventually leading to the company nuking cities and killing families and civilians on Sirius 6b.
They nuked the civilians?
Civilians were just on the same planet. The bombs were aimed at us.
Years passed, and a fragile stalemate is now in effect between the two exhausted, poorly supplied, and undermanned armies. Then, a lone NEB soldier approaches an Alliance compound, quickly getting killed in an extremely gory way by one of the eponymous Screamers. Highly sophisticated robotic weapons that helped the Alliance stave off the greedy NEB forces in the past. Turns out the NEB soldier was holding a message, and it's brought to the attention of the world-weary Commander Hendrickson, played by star Peter Weller.
We haven't seen a NEB soldier in 6 months.
So,
why does one single solitary grunt stumble into our yard, get shredded by a screamer, trying to hand deliver this?
Which shows a map of the NEB base, guaranteeing safe passage through enemy territory to discuss a truce to potentially finally end the war once and for all. They are then sent a hologram from an Alliance general on Earth confirming the validity of the NEB soldier's message.
The NEB Corporation Board has approached us here requesting an armistice. We could actually end this war.
Weller's Hendrickson is excited, or as excited as he can be, about the possibility of an end to the fighting.
peace, can you believe it?
The Nebs are businessmen. They're not going to ask for a ceasefire unless it's in their interest. Now they've discovered beryllium on Triton 4, it's in their interest.
At the same time, a military transport, claiming to be a civilian ship, crashes near the compound, where the only survivor is a new recruit named Ace Johnson, played by actor Andrew Lawyer, who tells Hendrickson the war is still going on, and if anything, it's only getting worse.
We're just a task force. There's 4,000 Alliance Army regulars on the way to Triton 4 right now.
We got a VR communique from Secretary Green yesterday.
Begging your pardon, sir. I don't know what you saw or what was sent to you, but Secretary Green was arrested and eliminated by the Alliance command.
Hendrickson doesn't know what to believe. To get at the bottom of this, Hendrickson decides to take Johnson with him on a journey to the NEB base to get some answers about what's going on. On the way through the war-torn and nuked-out ruins of Sirius 6b's desolate landscape, they come across a little boy with a teddy bear named David. After some debate, Hendrickson and Johnson decide to bring the child with them to the base. Once Hendrickson, Johnny, and David meet up at the NEB base, the NEB soldiers immediately shoot David down. While initially shocked, Johnny Hendrickson looked to see David is a robot. It's quickly revealed that David is in fact a screamer. Turns out, the Screamers, left to their own devices, had created underground factories, which allowed them to evolve into more sophisticated versions of themselves over the years, up to and including replicating human form. Hendrickson and Johnson proceed to enter the NEB base, only to find out it houses just 3 remaining survivors. Becker, played by Roy Dupuis, Ross, played by Charles Powell, and Jessica Hansen, played by Jennifer Rubin. Of course, there's instant distrust between the two groups, not only because they're on opposite sides of the proxy war, but also it's become clear that any one of them could be a Screamer. Once they discover the NEB command brutally massacred, it becomes obvious that the peace talks were actually a trap set up by the Screamers to kill off both human factions. Screamers was co-written by writer Dan O'Bannon, who had written the script for the original Alien film, as well as a screenplay adaptation of another famous Philip K. Dick story, Paul Verhoeven's Total Recall. Based on the book, we remember it for you wholesale. Unfortunately, the project spent over a decade in development hell. Then, Screamers finally went into production in the early 90s. It had been so long that O'Bannon had left the project by then and only became aware of its existence after it was already finished and he was notified by his agent about a screenplay credit he shared with co-writer Miguel, Tejada, Tejada-Flores, who had gotten a story by credit for Revenge of the Nerds, and is currently writing a TV show called Narcos vs. Zombies. Meanwhile, director Christian Duguay was a journeyman director who had done mostly TV movies, but had also directed the 2 official Scanner sequels, Scanner 2: The New Order, and Scanner 3: The Takeover. We don't talk about Scanner Cop, which thankfully Duguay had no part of. As for Peter Weller, he had just come off 2 romantic films before this, Woody Allen's Mr. Aphrodite and the French-Italian film Beyond the Clouds, which both came out the same year as Screamers, where he perfectly conveyed the world-weariness and gruff toughness of a military leader without delving into cliché or histrionics. Unfortunately, Screamers was not the triumphant return to genre cinema Weller might have been hoping for, having starred in, of course, RoboCop, but also David Cronenberg's Naked Lunch a few years prior, with the film making only about $5.5 million and an over $20 million budget. However, there is a straight-to-DVD sequel called Screamers: The Hunting. It came out in 2009, starring Lance Henriksen. However, despite the box office disappointment and mixed reviews, what makes Screamers great is first and foremost the prescient social allegory of class struggle made by the film vis-a-vis the war between the massive conglomerate NEB and the alliance made up of essentially striking workers, which is much more resonant now than the Soviet Cold War analogy of Philip K. Dick's original novel. Basically, this isn't a war of external forces or other nations, and it isn't a rebellion that is being fought on the front lines. It's instead a proxy war that is fought by the poor for the needs of the powerful interests who are, in this case, billions of miles away. This also brings to mind explicit allegories to conflicts in the Middle East, as the film isn't too far removed from the First Gulf War and the war in Vietnam, as it explicitly talks about how Earth is far away and untouched by the wars between the corporation and striking workers, and ultimately have say in the outcome, even though they are not the ones dealing with the casualties and horrors of the conflict themselves.
Well, shooting war on Earth might have done them some good. Hell, we could have ended this war up here a long time ago if some of those assholes on Earth rolled around in the mud and the ash a little bit.
Which assholes?
Furthermore, beryllium is told to be explicitly causing destruction of planets and the workers who mine it, which is an effective metaphor for the current carelessness of corporations towards our planet's safety and the well-being of their workers, and the vitriol and violence that corporations and the state rain down on workers attempting to unionize and fight for their rights, the way the New Economic Bloc does in the film. There's also some really good world building. First, there's the Screamers themselves, who started out as simple learning weapons called swords that were programmed to attack any living thing, while the Alliance themselves have to wear wrist bracelets called tabs so the scanners don't attack them. There's also the fact that everyone on Sirius 6B have to smoke reds.
Radiation?
That's right. This is the only thing that neutralizes it. Here.
Cigarettes that help stave off radiation poisoning due to the uranium mining and nuclear fallout. Now we're introduced in the beginning of the film to a claustrophobic military base in the middle of nowhere, where you'd assume a mid to low budget sci-fi film would spend most of its runtime to save on money and sets, which includes Weller's own Leviathan. But instead, the film surprisingly keeps moving and creating new mysteries, but also taking us to new locations. And finally, while some effects are dated, the matte paintings were superb. Whether it was a desolate landscape, a ruined, nuked out city, or a huge sci-fi base, they were all extremely well done and kept the film from feeling claustrophobic, repetitive, or stale. One of the best scenes is most definitely the first Screamer attack on the lone NEB soldier at the very beginning of the film. It's visceral, bloody, and suspenseful, and it immediately shows us the immense threat these robots will play later on in the film. However, it also harkens back to the moral ambiguity of the film, as an Alliance soldier cries as the enemy is being gruesomely dismembered by the Screamer. Because while the VFX mostly hold up in this scene, and the death is extremely bloody and even fun to look at first, the reactions of the Alliance soldiers in the bunker actually recontextualizes it. It makes us feel for the unfortunate NEB soldier. We realize this isn't something to glamorize, and that sets the tone for the dour but still very human story. There's also the scene where David's face morphs into a freaky robot Screamer face. That may be extremely dated VFX-wise by modern standards, it's still pretty unsettling regardless. So much so that it was the main focal point in the marketing. So if you are curious and are in the mood for an atmospheric, thought-provoking, and fun, if flawed, sci-fi thriller, you can do much worse than Screamers, which you can find on Blu-ray and DVD. Anyways, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any other suggestions for us, please leave them in the comments below.